I have now made 18 different individual introductory overviews to what I consider to be variations upon a single theme, to be dialects of each other, 18 different Germanic or Teutonic languages, living and historical, that have captured my attention over the course of my own scholarly life to the degree that I've studied them enough to be able to tell other people something about them in the hopes that this would stimulate interest in their study. And now I would like to move on to look at some other language families, but before I do that I wanted to do another little series of overviews of the entire Germanic language family and talk about language families as a whole. So I drew up this chart showing the Germanic language family, and I see now that I have it in front of my camera that I've all but succeeded in getting it to fit in front of the entire screen. We may have to clip off one side when we do so, but if we start over at the left, we'll look at the entire Germanic family historically. But before I talk about that, let me just say a little bit about the whole idea of language families for those who might not be familiar with the concept. Languages are very much living entities. However, they're different from human beings or other living animals or creatures to the extent that they do not have a set lifespan, and they do not have set sort of stages in their life, anything corresponding to infancy, childhood, adolescence, old age, that kind of thing. And they are not produced by sort of visible sexual reproduction. They come into being more by splitting or fusion out of other languages, and they can live in an indefinite period of time, and there's no sort of degree of maturity of them, just of change as long as they're alive. But that said, they do come in something that is quite analogous to the concept of, say, a human family, to the degree that if you look at two languages that are closely related, just as two people who are closely related, say, two sisters, look alike and to a certain degree function alike, think alike, have the same genetic heritage by virtue of having had the same mother, so the same is true of languages. So you can look at two languages and perhaps not know that they're sisters, but guess by seeing these features and facts. And so this notion of language families is relatively new. It came into being about 225 years ago when, in particular, an English polyglot, a judge by the name of Sir William Jones, who was stationed in India, decided that he would actually learn the Indian languages as he was there. He had prior knowledge of Latin and Greek and even of Gothic and some other European languages, and then proceeded to learn both Sanskrit on the one hand and living languages such as Bengali or Hindi on the other. And he noticed that whereas Bengali and Hindi on the one hand, and English and French and other contemporary European languages on the other hand, had very little visibly in common, the older versions of them, Sanskrit and Latin and Greek and Gothic, these languages had so much in common that it could really only be explained by a common descent, common heritage, sort of in the idea of a family of them all having come from the same place, having had the same mother. That mother is known here down at the lower left-hand corner as Indo-European. Indo-European is called that because Indo-European languages span geographically from India all through Europe. And the Indo-European language family is the most studied language family out there, and on its basis we sort of presume that other languages families work like that. Unfortunately, there's almost nothing that we can say about Indo-European languages and linguistics that is not controversial, that's not disputed heatedly by some scholar or other. So I'm going to try to refrain from making too many absolute statements and speak in just generalities here, and say that the Indo-European family, the Indo-European notion of Indo-European linguistics is this, that at some point in the past, probably around the year 3000 BC, there was what we can think of as a unified Indo-European language in some sort of Indo-European homeland, perhaps in Eastern Europe or in the Ukraine or in that area. And that in historical times, as we come closer to where we are now, 5,000 years later, in various waves of migrations, some groups of people left this Indo-European nucleus or Indo-European core or homeland and went out in various directions, some into India, some into Europe, and other places in between. And that as they left the core or the nucleus or the homeland at different times, so that that language that was there, the core language, Indo-European, like all languages, grows and changes and develops naturally. So when these other groups of people, migrating bands of warriors, left, they left at different stages. So this would explain for some differences between them, but also as these different groups or bands of migrating warriors coming out of there moved into new territories, these were not vacant areas. They encountered peoples who were living and established there, and languages changed not just according to an internal clock, but also according to external influence, external foreign loanwords and new concepts and the like. And so these two factors, leaving the homeland at different times and encountering different peoples, come to explain how the different families in the Indo-European family come to be different. Other groups in the Indo-European family include the Indo-Iranian languages, the Slavic languages, the Celtic languages, and the Romance languages. We have looked at the Germanic languages, which I only put up here so I can fit it on the chart. The Germanic languages are probably, again, all of this is controversial according to some people, but probably become differentiated as a specific family, which would be called at this point Proto-Germanic, give or take around the year 500 BC, when a set of phonetic sound changes that has come to be known as Werner's Law and affects a whole slew of consonants in a specific fashion. When this set of sound changes went through, this is probably what separated Germanic from the other members of the Indo-European family. So this would be about 500 BC. This time we're talking about Proto-Germanic, and as we come into our historical reckoning, about the year 0, the time of Christ, the beginning of the Roman Empire, we would find that the Germanic peoples are speaking probably what we would, again, this is all historically reconstructed in projection, what's called Common Germanic. They hadn't differentiated into the different branches of Germanic that we know about. We meet the Germanic peoples in history through the, through the Romans. The first significant date is 9 AD, when there's a tremendous battle in the Teutoburger Wald, which the Romans lose. And this kind of convinces them that they should not try to include Germania into the empire proper. This sets the borders of the empire there, which preserves the Germanic languages as a whole and prevents them from being absorbed into the vast continuum of Latin. The Romans respected people who could give them a good fight, such as Hannibal, after the fact, and this is reflected in the first real treatise that we have about the Germanic peoples. It's called Germania, and it's by the historian Tacitus, written about the year 198-99 AD. I'm out of time. I'll have to start the next video.